Good evening, folks. Just Graham Keith here with another video on the Great Wake Up. Thanks for watching. If you want to like, share or subscribe or leave a comment, that'd be much appreciated as we grow the channel. Now, this video, what I wanted to do is I wanted to directly talk to the police all over the world, because this applies to them all over the world. And what I'm about to say is very, very important, because it's the difference between freedom and slavery. And it's the difference between freedom and slavery of essentially the whole world. And why it's important is because the police do not understand their own role. And the reason they don't understand their own role is because they're not trained to. The police believe that the law is legislation as well as true law, true common law. Now let me tell you this, that couldn't be further from the truth. And the police don't seem to care. Of course they don't care, because they wear a badge, they believe they have authority, they believe they have power and control, and they believe they can be dominant over people, which is untrue, because the law is applicable to everyone. True law is applicable to everyone, where legislation is not. So let's dive into it. Police, I love, respect, I admire your courage and your bravery. I understand your humanity. I understand you are just like me. And I understand that your family and your children are just as important as my kids and my family. So this is not pulling you apart. This is not pulling you down. This is none of that. This is trying to wake you up to what's really going on. And you as a police officer have been lied to by your superiors, and maybe not because they know, maybe they don't know, but you've been lied to. The powers that be haven't told you the truth. Now, you may know the word legislation, and legislation in the United Kingdom or the UK or Albion, England, whatever you want to call it, but the UK is a corporation, so let's stick with that. Legislation applies only with consent and only to what is known as ens legis, because the word legislation comes from the word legis. Legislation, Legislation. You saw the legis at the front. And the ens legis is basically a fictional corporation that when you're born, that includes you officers, when you're born, your birth certificate is created. Now, the birth certificate is proof of ownership that somebody else owns. And the birth certificate has a number on it called a QSIP number, which means it's traded on the stock market. Now, ens legis then is essentially a corporation or a company. And because there is no money in the world, the ens legis is created. It's a trust. And in that trust is an amount of money, okay? It is based upon your future potential earning power over your life. So we're talking millions of pounds. Now, where are we going with this? Well, legislation is not law. It requires consent, and it's only applicable to fictitious persons. Now, you might think, what? Yeah, exactly. I thought the same. But I've been doing this for nearly 20 years, and everything that I'm going to tell you is true. It's verifiable, and nobody knows it. Very few people know it. Legislation applies to the ens legis. The ens legis is basically a paper version of you. And you've been tricked to believe that you are that name on the birth certificate. But if you look on the birth certificate, at the bottom line, it says, warning, this certificate is not evidence of identity, because it's not your identity. It is a corporation, okay? So every time you apply or you enforce legislation, oh dear, you're actually committing a party to fraud. And failure to differentiate legislation from law essentially is an offence. It's malfeasance or misfeasance or misconduct in public office. So think about what you're doing. Yes, you're trained incorrectly, just like all the population of all the countries in the world are trained incorrectly to believe, or they're not told through omission, fraud by omission, that that is not them. They're then trained through school to answer to the name on the birth certificate. John Smith, yes, miss. Anything with a surname is a corporation. It's a surety. It's not a human being. It's not a living man. It's not a living woman. It's not a living boy or living girl. And this is what you need to understand, because they can literally create legislation for anything. They could say anyone wearing a grey woolly hat must pay £100 fine. That's how legislation works. They can roll out legislation for anything. Speed cameras, Coronavirus Act, whatever you want to call it. Anything with the word act after it is telling you it's a performance, it's pretend, it's an act, it's not real. Okay? Now, royal, as in the royal family, means real. The royals don't have legal names. The royals don't have any of that because they're deemed real. They know who they are. They know they're not a birth certificate name. The Crown Corporation owns your name, and that's why the police ask for your name, your address, and your date of birth to create, 1, a fraudulent identity in the name. 2, they need to link that corporate name to a corporate address, which is the address that you believe you live at. And your date of birth then locates that fictitious person, because there could be a million John Smiths all over the world. So the name, address, and date of birth create the joinder with that specific person, legal person. And that's why the police are instructed to get your name, address, and date of birth. But every time they do that, they're breaking the law and they're open to claims. So police, the reason you're an officer and you have a number is because you are party to fraud. Every time you ask for name, address, date of birth, where legislation is being used, oh dear, you're in a whole world of trouble. And let me tell you this, as I said before, failure to differentiate law from legal acts is a crime. So you need to be sure what you're doing, and most people are not sure what they're doing, and it's as simple as that. So what you want to do is be real and know what you're doing, and then you can enforce true law as opposed to legislation. So there we go. That's the truth of the matter, and that's the end of this video. Thank you for watching.